All right, everyone. Welcome to another Buzz Slayers interview. We are here with Scott Clay, who, you released an album this year. Actually, Jade was from this
Yep,
year, right?
that's
And
correct.
you, and you're most known for, your stuff is like very like a cross between classic folk, Americana, a little bit of country, really just heartland folk rock type stuff.
Yeah,
So a lot of it's very warm, a lot of it's very inviting, and a lot of it is very descriptive. And I
yeah,
definitely enjoy that about the music. So when I heard about the new track, when I listened to the new track,
yeah,
obviously it's a remix. I was kind of like, whoa, because it works.
yes,
Like, dude, come on, like it works so well. It's so
yeah,
different. So the new track is not out yet. It's coming out January 13th, as far as I know, right?
yep, that's
Yeah.
correct. Yeah,
And this is a remix of a track called Aurora, which was from a record that you released in 2022, and that was Let It All Lay Bare was the record it was from. I actually
yeah,
listened to that
yeah,
record before. Um,
nice.
so first of all, before we even get into Aurora, can you give us a little history? Like, how did all of this actually start for you, man? Like, what made you pick up a guitar? What did you
Sure.
hear that made you all of a sudden, what music changed your life? And then all of a sudden you were like, wow, I need to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was 14 and kind of just, in that age, curious, experimental, just trying to find a hobby, trying to find things that captivated me.
Yeah.
And there was a classical guitar in my bedroom closet that my mom, she played. Apparently, like, I never actually heard her play, but it was sitting in there with her sheet music and stuff. So that's
Wow.
from when she was in her 20s. And so I was 14, just kind of searching around the closet and found a guitar. And my best friend Jeff, he also had picked up guitar like basically the same month, and we're
Right.
less than a year apart in
You
age.
started
So
jamming.
we started jamming. Yep, we started jamming. And we would, this is like way before we understood music theory or even like chord structure. We would just like, almost just like feel it out, like by ear. And, he would like start riffing and then I would like solo over it. So we just spent hours and hours and hours doing that.
Uh,
And then, we got plugged in. He and I both, again, kind of at the same level. We had some mentors in the church that we were involved in, and so they were like, "Oh, actually, this is a real chord, and like this is how to actually structure your music."
right.
So we got really into it that way, and we had some people that were like maybe 3 to 4 years older than us, that were like legitimate musicians who kind of took us under their wing, and from there
Right.
it just like kept going and going.
Wow. So you had that. I mean, I think that's kind of a special thing, just having someone that especially at that age, when you're just
Yes,
finding the instrument. I kind of had the same thing actually. I mean, I play guitar. Not,
sure,
I can't do what you do, but when I was young, when I was like maybe 15 or around 16, around the same
yeah,
age, I had a good buddy too, and it's such an amazing. And
yep,
that's the same. All we did was jam and switch off soloing. Like that's all we
hmm,
did. There
yeah,
was no structure. We didn't care. It was just some fucking chords, and it was like,
yeah,
pardon my language, just some chords, and it was like, let's jam over
yeah.
it. And it was just such a,
Yeah.
to have that experience at that age. I mean,
Oh,
that's part
sure.
of that's a big part of what made you, like
Oh,
that's a big
absolutely.
part.
Well, because
Yeah.
you're immediately experimental, improvisational, like no structure. And there's a lot there that you can really work from. It's just, again, and I think a big part of it is like, especially in that era, like I take for granted YouTube nowadays. Like if you want a 2 chord jam or a 4 chord jam and whatever key, you plug it into your computer and you're going. But this was 1994.
Yeah.
There's no YouTube, you
No.
know. So he and I like getting together. Hey, we could E minor to A minor jam, and he would just sit there for half an hour. We'd be just riffing,
Just playing chords. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it was so fun.
And I bet he had a blast too, dude. Like,
Oh, of course.
are you still friends with him?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'll see him in less than a week for
Oh,
over
good for
Christmas.
you.
Yeah,
That makes me the happiest of the whole.
yeah. Oh, sure.
Um,
And I asked him first question when I got on the phone with him. Do you have 2 acoustics? And he's like, yeah. So
yes,
we'll
dude.
sit down.
So
It's so fun.
is this like a thing where you haven't seen him in a little while, or?
Yeah, it's been over 6 months.
Oh
So
man, yeah,
he's in
yeah,
my hometown. So
yeah. I know what that
yeah,
feels like too. It's a good feeling. Good for you. You're gonna have a
yeah,
blast, dude. Good for you, man.
yeah,
It'll be better than a show because you'll just be free.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's the best.
So, all right, awesome. Well, that's I love that. So before we get into Aurora, so actually, you know what? Let's talk about this because, you know, from what I picked up, you know, and I listened to a couple of your records, including Jade, which Jade is, you know, a huge, you know, album. Do you play shows often? Do you play out, perform live a
Yeah,
lot?
yeah, a lot. Yeah,
You have stuff coming up?
yeah, I do. I just finished a UK tour, and I put
Wow,
together a live album from that. So that'll be coming out mid 2025.
nice.
In fact, this morning I put the very final touches on one song that I'm releasing from that. So I
Nice.
just did a UK tour, and then the show I'm most excited about next year. It's here in Nashville. It's in West Nashville. I live in West Nashville. It's a beautiful hotel named the Hutton Hotel,
Uh-huh.
and they built this soundstage for film and TV recording called the Analog. So we're doing a full band show there, filming the whole thing, recording the whole thing, and we're going to release a live
Oh,
album.
that's
And
gonna look
it's
sick.
gorgeous. I mean, it's designed like no joke. Like Peter Frampton's done live stuff from there.
Wait, is
Um,
it so? Just in case I'm getting this wrong. Like I get the audio part, but is there's they have cameras and stuff too, so you actually get the
yep.
whole. That's
But, I
sick.
mean, it's designed like they do stuff for PBS all the time. Like full
Oh,
bands. Michael McDonald, like you name it.
classic.
People have
Oh,
been there,
I,
and so the cameras are built into the room. So
right.
I rented the whole room. We're doing a live show, ticketed event. So it's going to be really fun. It's gorgeous. It's a
What
really
is
cool
that?
room.
What's the date for that?
That's March 20th.
So
March 20th.
March
Yep.
20th in Nashville. Okay, cool.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow. All right, I'll put
Pumped
that
for that.
in. Yeah, well, I'll put that in the written part so
Sure.
people can
Yeah, ticket link and
know.
everything. Yeah, it's going to be a special show. We're going to try to cover, stuff from all the albums,
Yeah.
and we'll have pedal steel, we'll have full band, keys, bass, everything.
So let me
Yeah.
ask. That brings me to another question, actually. So this is all of this is your stuff. Like this is your
Mhm.
you compose and write everything yourself. When you
That's right.
play when you play live, do you have like a dedicated band that you go on tour with, or do you have people that you hire? How does that live situation work in terms of having a band involved, or do you have a band already?
I typically use session players.
Mhm.
So it really depends. I've done a lot of different regional tours. So I like if I were to go back to Alaska, which I've toured a bunch there, there's
Wow.
players there that I've worked with for 4 years now. And so they already know most of the music that I do, and we've already rehearsed. So, I've got session players I've used here in Nashville, up in
Wow.
Alaska, Seattle area, Colorado.
So
And
you go
so
up and so you just come in and you say, okay, I'm going to do this show.
yeah. Yeah. Or it's or a run, like, 8
Sure.
shows or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's where
typically
Aurora
work with
comes in.
session guys, and I love it because everyone brings their flair and
Yeah.
their perspective, and that's part of improvisation as well. Is hey, I'm riffing off you, and, like you've got a jazz background versus a funk background or whatever, and you're
Yeah.
just kind of going with that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And these guys usually are they're professionals, so they learn your stuff pretty damn quick.
Hmm.
Sure.
Now with Jade, I tracked all the instrument parts in New Orleans. So this upcoming show, with any luck, I might bring some of those New Orleans session players out. So
Cool.
that's kind of the hope, because they were fun, really fun to work with. So
Oh, I'm sure. New Orleans, dude. Come
yeah,
on.
we'll see if I can't pull that off.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of where Aurora comes from. If you've done a lot in Alaska, obviously that's where Aurora
Hmm.
that's where it was birthed from.
Yeah.
That's so cool, man. Yeah, I was just curious about that because I know that that you do a lot of the during the recording process, you do a lot or all of the instrumentation or most of the instrumentation. And
Yeah.
I know that I was pretty sure you wrote, and composed everything. So it's always curious to an outsider, like when someone, it's like, you're Scott Clay. So it's like, if you know, it's not like the Scott Clay band. So when people, I think a lot of people that aren't musicians, you know, they're always kind of curious about like, okay, well, how does that work? You know, like, does he have a band that he tours with, or does he hire people, or what, you know? So it's cool to know, because people don't know a lot of that background area of being an artist like yourself, and the kind of, you know, outside the, you know, the creation kind of box, you know, work that needs to be done to pull off a tour, you know, and pull off videos and all that kind of stuff. And you have a bunch of great videos. And so in terms of, all right. I was going to jump into something else, but we'll go into Aurora now, because I got to know. So, all right. So again, Aurora, this is a remix that's coming out. It's January 13th. Yeah. So this is a remix by Jabberbeats and Vermilion.
Yep.
Okay. So first of all, this, just for people that are watching this, you know, Scott is, you know, you're like I said before, very kind of homeland folk, roots Americana, a blend of stuff. Folk rock, it was what I would probably call it at the forefront, maybe Americana. Because you blend a lot of different kinds of instrumentation in your stuff, and a lot of your stuff, like I said, is very warm. You have, you know, all kinds of stuff, but this is a completely different take on a track that that's on a different record from 2022. And so when you listen to the track, this is like, it's like a kind of it's a very super kind of radio friendly alternative pop type of, you know, it's got keys and organs, and like, it's very like vast and like cinematic, you know, and your stuff can be cinematic, because some of your stuff has like the emotional push, you know, and because of the way you perform and sing, and the emotion behind certain tracks, that also can be obviously fitting for film and TV. But this song is like fully cinematic, like it's spacious, you know. So how did you meet these guys? Who approached who? How did this happen, this remix?
Well, so for all of my live shows, I have a full rig that I tour with. You know, it's a mixer, and sometimes I have backing tracks, or even simply put, the UK tour, I toured with a rig to record everything. So there's a set of musicians, one musician in particular in Seattle who is also an engineer, and he and I have been doing work together for over 6 years, maybe 8. And he does remixes, and he creates beats for hip hop rap artists. And so I really like, you know, what he puts out with other artists, and so I approached him, and he's primarily a guitar player, and so I approached him, and I offered like this track, and I said, hey, would you be interested in remixing it? And then a good friend of his, it's a bassist who I've worked with live, also does remixes as well. So they collaborated together. So I individually knew each of them prior to all this, and I just kind of, you know, left the door open and just said, hey, here's the track, I want you to take your spin. And I love what they did, because to me, I have a favorite artist named Wax Taylor, he's kind of like a remix DJ kind of guy, and he has this kind of vibe of what we're doing for this track. So immediately, like in my mind, I was like, oh, I know where this is going. So, and they just had a ton of fun with it.
So you just let them run with it. You were just like, here's the track. So did you pick that song, or were they like?
Yeah, I picked that song.
Good choice, man. Obviously, good choice. I mean, it's crazy how well it fits. Like, if I were to just send that to somebody, and they didn't know who you were, they would think that all the rest of your stuff sounded like that. Like, they would think that all your stuff has that kind of, you know, super radio kind of cinematic pop. They did it in like just a ridiculous job. And so when you do that with those guys, do they already have like the stems? Are they like, oh, here we have the vocal stems?
I gave him the stems. The cool thing though is Josh Vermilion, Jabberbeats, Josh Jabberbeats, he played the guitar solo on it. So the remix, it has, and then Vermilion, who's David Murray, played the bass part on it. So that not only do they remix, you know, in terms of the beats, but they actually recorded their parts. Yeah. And that's in part why the bass line is just so radically different.
It's ridiculous.
Because he remixed the bass part, you know, like by
Yeah.
performing it. So that's just so fun to have musicians that are remixing.
I mean, that's like beyond a remix. I mean, that's like,
Yeah,
that's like Friends shit right there. That's like,
exactly.
that's like, I mean, you can tell they had fun with it. Like if someone
Yep.
is like, they remix your track and then they're like laying guitar stuff down, they're laying like
Yes.
fresh bass lines down, like, and it's
Yeah.
because you were basically like, and I think that's important because you let them
Yeah.
run with it. You were like, listen, do your thing. Like you have full
Yeah.
faith in them. That's
Yeah.
what you're saying. And so
Yep.
because you have that full faith and you were like, dudes, just do you guys this thing, and I'm sure it'll be
Yep.
sick, whatever. And you just
Yeah.
left, and so
Yeah.
that they had so much freedom to like do what they wanted to do, and knowing that you're who you are, you know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
not gonna,
Yep.
and they wanted to make it super cool, obviously, but it's
Hmm.
so like it is like it's to a point where like if you wanted to, you could hook up with those two guys and create a whole nother artist and release a whole record that's not even
Yeah.
under Scott Clay, that's under some other
Yep.
fucking name. Like
Yeah.
it's such a crazy good song. And I had to go back and listen to the original Aurora. And it's so, I mean, it's, it's so different,
Yeah.
it's
It's
so
very,
incredible. And it's to
just
me,
rhythmically, even just rhythmically, it's like
everything,
it's on
it's
the side.
different. It's in
Yeah.
there, the song
Hmm.
is in there, but it's
Yeah.
so different. They had such a crazy, not anything like, they didn't work off of the original in terms of the vision at all. They had a vision
Yeah.
for it, I think, already.
Yeah.
And they really just rolled with it, and just it was incredible. And this is a track that
Yeah.
and the video, where did you shoot that in Alaska?
So that was in North Cascades National Park in Washington State.
Oh.
So it's the Mount Baker ski area is where it is.
Oh, okay.
And so I shot the Aurora video with the 2022 release and in the parking lot of Mount Baker ski area, which is like, it sounds easy to get to. Let me tell you, it is deep. I mean, you're on the Canadian border, you drive, 40 miles from the nearest town up into a massive, I mean, the second largest mountain in Washington State.
Jesus.
And so the videographer lived in Bellingham, which is like the closest major city to the ski area. And we tentatively planned a date to film, and it just happened to like get like probably 4 feet of snow that night. Like it got slammed. And then we had the Bluebird ski day that following morning when we filmed. And
Really?
so he and it was just the two of us. We just went out, drove up there. And so the original video,
Yeah.
it's mostly daytime footage. So daylight, because, when you're filming, you need light. So,
Yeah.
so we used a lot of daylight footage to get the mountain, to get the trees.
Right.
But in my mind, I always wanted it to be a nighttime setting because it's the Aurora and you see the Aurora at night.
Exactly.
So I took all of this campfire and nighttime footage that didn't get released on the prior video and used, because we had 4 hours of footage. So I just completely flipped the scene to where it was as much nighttime footage for this remix as possible.
And there was a lot of it. I mean, it looks
And there
like
was a lot of it.
Yeah, almost the whole thing. So
Mhm.
I think that so you do have a huge hand in that aspect creatively too, because this does have, it's Aurora. It should be a nighttime video. It makes you took the words out of my mouth when you said it, and basically
Yeah.
the aesthetic and the vibe. I feel like the way that this one was done with a lot more night stuff, the fire, the fire, and you singing,
Mhm.
the way that this was shot, or what, the way it was put together rather,
Mhm.
works even better for the remix, in my opinion,
Exactly.
than the
Yeah.
original.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have guessed. I would thought that was just a whole new
Yeah.
video and
And
whatever.
it was just extra footage.
And
That's really all it was.
Yeah, and so you edit your stuff, you edit your videos and everything?
This one I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Aurora remix I completely edited and put it together myself. The prior one I worked with the cinematographer and he did the editing. So I just reached out to him and I said, "Hey, can you send me everything you've got from our session?" It was probably 3 years ago or so. And so he just sent me a thumb drive with everything, and I just dug through all the footage and just found, things that hadn't been released yet. And again, I wanted to be like the two sides of a coin, the
Yeah.
the daylight Aurora footage and then the nighttime Aurora footage, and that's your remix and your original. So
Right.
that's
Oh,
really the
cool.
approach I took. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's cool that you put so much energy and creativity into that aspect too. I didn't know that you did, because the editing on this the remix video is really well done too. It fits, like you worked on
Yeah.
it for a while, like that
Yeah.
fits. Everything
It
fit
was
lined
fun.
up. Yeah, no, everything lined up perfectly, and I could tell there was time put into that, and it just feels right for the song too. It
Yep.
feels, it feels kind of good, and um, I'm excited for this track. One thing I wanted to ask, because this is interesting too, because when I first heard the song, I was like, all right, I'm not going to ask him if this is like a step in a new direction for him, because he's not going to come out with like a bunch of alt
Sure.
pop stuff,
Yeah.
But I did want to ask you, for your normal stuff, and this is a question I ask any interview I do.
Sure.
It's some people, you might hate me for it, but you might not. I don't know. Let's
Yeah.
find
Yeah.
out. So, and this is a toughie. I know you probably know what I'm going to ask already, but so in terms of, and it doesn't have to be guitar players, doesn't have to be singers, any particular thing, but it could be something, your mom or dad played when you were a kid. But what are your top 5 musical influences? The songs, or the artists or the bands that you heard for the first time and you knew you felt different afterwards? When did you fall in love with
Yeah.
when was that? Who was that with?
Yeah. I mean,
It's a toughie.
there's different eras, It's like you kind of go through different phases.
Yeah.
I mean, early on, there's a UK band called Delirious that's from like the 90s. And when I was, first getting into music, it was kind of this like underground, like you bought these little, it was they sold their CDs in this like tins. It was like a metal tin.
Oh
But you
yeah.
had to buy it, from the UK. So it was like a special mail order thing. And
Right.
so like my friends and I, when I was super young, we would, we'd buy their CDs and like share them around. And I
Right.
remember, and they're a really cool band. They're very experimental. And so that was like an early influence.
So
And
Delirium from the UK is a
Delirious,
big
yeah.
one.
Delirious.
Delirious.
Yeah. So that was kind of like early on. And then, I was in a band 14, 15, 16, like 4 years. And so, I mean, people always tell me that I sound like Counting Crows, but I didn't really listen much to Counting Crows.
I can see that, I
That's
think.
like my voice. But my thought is how this all trickled down was potentially the lead singer of the band that I was in, who was about 4 years older than me. He may have been influenced by them. And then I was influenced by him.
Oh.
Because early on, I was a rhythm guitarist and I wasn't much of a singer. And I was in this band and, we played regularly, like, 3, 4 nights a week. And so, I was picking up from the on stage vibe, the drummer, which was the lead singer's brother. And so there's probably influences that infiltrated to our band that I don't even recognize. Potentially the Counting Crows or
Right.
whoever the bass player was like digging,
So,
So that's where I go back to, is the influences may have come through this live performance that we would do.
right. So I mean, you see, maybe the lead singer that was a bit older than you was influenced by Counting Crows and his vocal style, and then you kind of picked
Yep.
up on that and was influenced by his vocal style.
Yeah.
But getting back to stuff like Delirious, right? So
Yeah.
like what
Yeah.
what other bands did you hear where you were
Yep.
like, I want to do this, I want to pick up a guitar,
Yeah.
I want to fucking play, I want to make music?
Yeah.
What did you hear that made you want to make before you were in bands at 14?
Oh yeah, yeah. Making music. I mean, other influences would be Creedence Clearwater. That's like once I heard their greatest hits, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And to this day, like John Fogerty's live stuff, I can't get over it. It's
There you
so
go.
it's so incredible.
Yes.
Now
we're getting real.
Tom Petty for
Oh
sure.
God, forget it.
That's another one where when I'm doing cover songs, like I can go for hours just trying to replicate their stuff. And Eric Clapton was one that was just like, whoa, because again, we haven't talked about this, but the blues for me is like a major, influence and just a major point of just inspiration. And so, like, yeah, I mean, you're talking blues finds its way into Tom Petty, Eric Clapton, Creedence Clearwater,
Yeah.
and so it's fun to even kind of like go through and find their influences,
Right.
and be re-inspired by all that. So those are
Right.
three that pop out to me.
Those are excellent. Those are all excellent. And those a lot of people would technically consider to be classic rock. A lot of general
Yes.
people would consider that. We can sit
Yeah.
here and pick it apart all day, but
Yeah.
people would say Creedence is, they'd be like, oh, I love
Yeah.
Creedence, classic rock,
Yeah.
or people that are, maybe 25 and under have no idea who
Sure.
that is. But
Yeah.
sadly, I can understand Creedence. I can definitely understand Tom Petty, John Fogerty,
Yeah.
obviously. I mean, I kind of figured a little bit along those lines because
Yeah.
your stuff is you definitely have that Southern soul, the classic rock influence in a lot of your stuff. I consider your stuff to be a little bit more, slightly more folk inspired or slightly more Americana influenced, in my opinion. But that depends on what records and what songs as well. Some songs
Sure.
aren't. Some songs are way more classic rock, but some
Yeah.
songs are super Americana. I think that the record Jade that you released earlier this year has a lot of Americana on it to me.
Yeah.
A little bit more Southern soul,
Yeah.
and not just in the vocals, and you also, the way you layer guitar, acoustic and electric guitars on some of the tracks, like you're definitely getting, you can tell you have fun with it.
Yeah.
Basically, like, I think a lot of younger artists out there, I don't, some of them, and I work with tons of them, and I think that a lot of them, a good amount of them don't really get, I don't think, a grasp on the power of networking and the kind of networking that you have to do. Like, look at even just forget even networking. Like, first of all, to do what you do, you got to network. You have to have the players. You got to find the people. You got to work with people. You got to talk to people, and you got to put shit together. You don't just get shows. And you don't just get session players on that level either. You have to be able to network and know people. You don't get remixes like this without knowing people and networking in the beginning. Maybe now you're friends, but that's not how it started. You networked.
Exactly.
And so artists need to learn from this kind of situation and be like, hey, this is a thing that you have to do to help push where you're going.
Yeah.
And not only that, but like, you kind of take it to another level because it feels like, with the posters on the wall, the frames on the walls, and even just the stories that you're telling me these exact places where you shot the Aurora video originally.
Yeah.
You travel to do, you are a traveler. You like to travel.
Yes.
And so, like, that's a big part of it too. Like, people, if you want to really get your stuff out there, you've got to be there to do it.
Yeah.
You can't just, it's not just about pushing a record that you've recorded. It's definitely partially about that.
Yeah.
But you have to put yourself out there too. What kind of advice would you give to people like that? I mean, do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're just absolutely, this is why I live in Nashville, because I literally have a list of 7 nights a week of songwriters rounds that I can just drop in. Not even as a performer, just as a listener.
Right.
Because that's how you network. You go to a songwriter round, maybe there's 15 people there, but your ears open and you're like, oh my God, either I'm inspired by your writing or your vocal style, or like I want to do a show with you, or I want to talk to you and learn X, Y, and Z thing. And so this, it's one of the best cities in the world to do songwriters nights, again, either as a performer or as a listener. And I would say, of course, go first as a listener. Like, always approach it as a listener. And so that's networking completely.
Absolutely.
You may love someone and they may introduce you to a producer that's like an incredible, or may tell you about a radio show that you might be able to go do, or just become buddies. I mean, or co-write together. That's another amazing thing.
Yeah, any kind of relationship can be built from that, and if maybe nothing comes from it, it doesn't matter. But the point is, it's a kind of like a almost like a numbers game. If you network with enough people, eventually you're going to hook up with that dude or hook up with that person, or and maybe. And so you put that perfectly for others too, where it's like, that person may have a producer, and now they're going to introduce you to, and they may hear that person that you like their stuff. Maybe you guys hang out one day because you met them at the film. You're gonna plan on jamming. You go, oh, hey, here's my record, and then a week later he hits you up and goes, dude, that Jade record was sick. Here's my producer. I gave my producer your number. He's gonna call you. That's the kind of things that happen. You have to kind of like put yourself out there to make those kinds of things happen. And I feel like, from talking to a lot of kind of younger artists, I guess, I don't think that they I feel like, and some of them are, I mean, not all of them, from some people, I don't think they understand the power of networking and the kind of time that you can and should put into it to really, because if people really want to get themselves out there on a level like yours, they have to do that kind of stuff. I did recently talk to a band that's in Austin, and this dude said the same thing as you. He was like, that's why I live here. He's like, so I can go. He didn't say writer circles, but it was basically the same thing. He was like, he's like 7 nights a week. He's like, I can go. He's like, and he said the same thing as you. He was like, I'm not even talking about playing the show. I can go to a show, on Tuesday night, and it'll be packed here in Austin. So, so
local artists.
Yeah. And so where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Eastern Washington State.
Oh, okay.
So about 4 hours east of Seattle. Right. So I grew up there, and then I moved to Seattle in my early 20s, and I lived on and off in the Seattle area for 16 years.
Right.
And then touring got me out to Nashville after, I got on the road nationwide and was going coast to coast, and fell in love with the scene here and the Americana. We have the Americana Music Association is hosted out of Nashville.
Oh yeah.
And as soon as I went to that conference for the first time, I was like, oh, I want to get plugged in with this.
That's it.
Yeah. That was it.
That's so cool. So you basically you went until you found us, and you basically fell in love with the place. You were like, oh, this is where I need to be. And
well, it's a songwriter's city. It really is.
Yeah.
And the other great thing is it's where tours hone their, like, I mean, you even like the recording space or the rehearsal space I use, like Kings of Leon do their rehearsals there. Like it's where you hone what your tour is going to be.
Right.
You're trying out material, you're trying out even stage banter, you're trying out lighting, you're trying out everything to perfect what you're going to take out on the road.
Right.
And so when you go to these writer circles, it might be, someone that's getting ready to go out on tour, and they're checking out their material. Is this song ready to take live or not?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of authenticity and experimentation that happens here, and it's very stripped down.
Yeah.
It's a stripped down kind of environment.
There's a rawness to it. There's a raw kind of energy to it. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I love that. I like that you're in a place where you feel like, where basically, in your soul, you kind of know you belong right now. That's a good
it's
thing.
Important. It's really important.
It's very important. Yeah. So, all right, let's see. So, wow, this is great, man. You gave so much great stuff.
So fun.
So what's next for you? I mean, you did mention you have some shows coming up. You got that big one you're going to record. What's like, after Aurora? So you did mention there's a single that you're going to release. What's that? What's coming up?
Well, we got the release coming up in January for Aurora.
Right.
I just finished a UK tour, and I just put together a live album.
Yep. Right, the live album. Okay.
Yep. So we're gonna mix that in the next couple months here. It's completely done. We recorded every show, so I just kind of listened through and found the tracks that kind of jumped out at me.
Right.
And so I'll release that. It's just gonna be a solo acoustic live album.
Nice.
Which is the first. I've never done a live album, so it's the first ever.
That's cool.
And then we're gonna doing that full band recording the live show here in Nashville.
Insane.
March 20th.
Insane.
With it'll be really fun. So that's all coming up, and then I'm doing co-writing here in town. Probably start putting some singles together, some new material, maybe in late 2025. But right now the focus is on those live albums that are coming out.
That's quite enough. I think you got enough on your plate right now.
Oh, it's fun. That's just the way I like it. Keep things busy.
You're keeping yourself busy indeed, being ultra creative.
And tons of guitar practice too. I've just been diving deep into electric guitar, lead type stuff. So just having a blast with that. Yeah.
The more you pick up the instrument and the more you even mess around with sounds and stuff, that it can
Yeah.
it'll help shape whatever you're doing, you know, creatively and musically and stuff.
Always.
So it'll be fun.
Always.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Scott. Is there anything you
Well,
wanted to
thank
add?
you. Along with the Vermilion Jabber Beats remix, there's 2 other remixes along with it.
Ooh.
So there's going to be a little EP for this Aurora release.
What are the other tracks? Do we get to know, or?
Yeah. So they're remix artists that I found via a band called Emancipator, who's a Portland-based DJ. Yeah, really cool artist. So he had a remix album, and I reached out to a few remix artists that were on that album, and so there'll be a few others. So couple different takes on Aurora. So it's definitely worth.
It's all Aurora.
Yep, all Aurora.
That's cool. Okay, cool.
Yep.
I like that. The Aurora kind of remix EP.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Very cool. All right. Awesome. Yeah. All right, cool. So this remix, the Jabber Beats of Vermilion remix, is out January 13th. It's going to just be everywhere. And then we can look out, hopefully, for a couple more Aurora remixes to follow suit. You got the live record that you're putting together after you finish the UK tour. So we can expect a bunch of stuff. You're not going to stop anytime soon, basically.
Oh, no. I'm having the best time. It's too much fun.